In a bustling neighborhood on the outskirts of town, where apartment buildings stretched towards the sky and children's laughter echoed through the local park, lived a 12-year-old boy who always carried a small toolbox with him. His friends often teased him about it, but he didn't mind. Ever since his grandfather had taught him how to fix things, he found joy in repairing broken items that others might simply throw away. One sunny afternoon, while walking home from school, he heard soft crying coming from a bench near the playground. A little girl, probably around 6 years old, sat there holding what appeared to be a broken mechanical puppy toy. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she tried repeatedly to make it work, but the toy remained silent and still. Without hesitation, the boy approached her. "Hey there," he said gently, "I noticed your toy isn't working. Would you like me to take a look at it?" The little girl looked up at him with hopeful eyes, though still clutching her precious toy protectively. Her older brother, who had been watching from nearby, came over and explained that it was their grandmother's last gift to her before moving to another city. The toy had stopped working that morning, and his sister hadn't stopped crying since. The boy sat down on the bench and carefully opened his toolbox. "I can't promise anything," he said honestly, "but I'll try my best to fix it." The little girl watched intently as he examined the toy, his gentle hands carefully removing the back panel to reveal the mechanical parts inside. For the next 30 minutes, he worked diligently, occasionally explaining what he was doing to the fascinated siblings. He discovered that a loose wire had disconnected from the battery compartment, and several gears needed realignment. It wasn't a complex repair, but it required patience and attention to detail. Finally, after reconnecting the last wire and closing the panel, he pressed the power button. The mechanical puppy sprang to life, wagging its tail and barking its cheerful electronic bark. The little girl's face lit up with pure joy, and she hugged her beloved toy tightly. Thank you," she exclaimed, bouncing with excitement. Her brother smiled warmly, clearly relieved to see his sister happy again. The boy simply shrugged, saying it was no big deal, but their gratitude made him feel warm inside. As the sky began to turn golden with the setting sun, the siblings needed to head home. The little girl gave the boy a quick hug before leaving, still clutching her now working toy. The boy packed up his toolbox, watching them walk away, unaware that this simple act of kindness would lead to something extraordinary the very next day. Unknown to him, someone else had been watching this entire scene unfold, someone who would change his life in ways he could never imagine. As he walked home that evening, the setting sun cast long shadows behind him, and somewhere in the neighborhood, wheels were already in motion, sparked by his simple act of kindness. That night, as he sat at dinner with his parents, telling them about his day, he left out the story about fixing the toy. To him, it wasn't anything special, just another broken thing he'd managed to repair. He didn't realize that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can create the biggest ripples in the pond of life. In his room later that evening, while organizing his toolbox and replacing the few supplies he'd used, he thought about the little girl's smile when her toy started working again. It reminded him of why he started carrying his toolbox in the first place, not for recognition or reward, but for moments like these, where he could turn someone's sadness into joy. Little did he know that tomorrow would bring a surprise that would make him realize just how much impact a single act of kindness could have. As he drifted off to sleep that night, the mechanical puppy's happy bark echoed in his dreams, a prelude to the amazing events that awaited him when the sun rose again. The next morning dawned bright and clear, with no hint of the extraordinary events about to unfold. The boy went through his usual routine, getting ready for school, double-checking his toolbox was packed, a habit his mother lovingly teased him about, and heading out the door with his backpack slung over one shoulder. As he walked down the familiar streets of his neighborhood, he noticed something different. People were looking at their phones more than usual, and several neighbors waved at him with knowing smiles. He wondered if he had forgotten some special occasion, but shrugged it off and continued his way to school. The real surprise came when he reached the school gates. His best friend came running up to him, practically bouncing with excitement. "Have you seen it?" Have you? You're all over social media, his friend exclaimed, thrusting his phone into the boy's face. There, on the screen, was a video that made his heart skip a beat. Someone had recorded his entire interaction with the little girl and her broken toy from the previous day. The video showed him working carefully on the mechanical puppy, explaining things to the siblings, and the moment of joy when the toy sprang back to life. But what really caught his attention were the comments below. It turned out that the person who recorded the video was a well-known local journalist who had been at the park working on a different story. She had captured the entire scene and posted it online with a simple caption, "In a world where kindness seems rare, this young boy reminds us that heroes come in all sizes." The video had gone viral overnight, touching hearts across the city. People were sharing stories in the comments about their own experiences with broken toys and precious memories, and how this simple act of kindness had reminded them of the good in the world. As he walked through the school hallways that morning, the boy felt strange being the center of attention. His teachers smiled warmly at him, and even the principal stopped him to express how proud the school was to have a student who embodied such caring values. During lunch break, something even more unexpected happened. A local toy store owner who had seen the video came to the school to meet him. The elderly man's eyes twinkled as he shared his own story, how he had started his business 40 years ago repairing old toys for children who couldn't afford new ones. "Young man," the toy store owner said, pulling up a chair in the principal's office where they had gathered, "what you did yesterday? That's exactly what this world needs more of. People who take the time to fix things, to help others, to show that small acts of kindness matter." The boy listened intently as the man continued, "I've been looking for someone to teach my craft to, someone who understands that toys aren't just plastic and metal, they're vessels of memories and joy. Would you be interested in learning more? Your grandfather taught you the basics, but I could show you so much more." The offer took the boy by surprise. He had never thought his simple hobby of fixing things could lead to something like this. The principal, who was present for the meeting, smiled encouragingly, explaining that they could work out a special arrangement for him to apprentice at the toy store after school. As the day progressed, more surprises unfolded. The little girl's family had been trying to find him to express their gratitude properly. Her grandmother, who had given her the mechanical puppy, called the school after seeing the video. Through tears of joy, she explained how that toy was a family heirloom, passed down through generations, and how grateful she was that someone had taken the time to repair it. But perhaps the most touching moment came after school, when he returned to the park where it all began. The same bench where he had fixed the toy was now decorated with handwritten notes from local children, each sharing stories about their own precious toys and thanking him for showing them that broken things didn't always need to be thrown away. As he sat there reading the notes, his toolbox resting beside him, he realized something important. His grandfather had always told him that tools weren't just for fixing things, they were for fixing moments, memories, and sometimes even hearts. Now, sitting on that bench with the afternoon sun warming his face, he finally understood what that meant. The viral video had done more than just make him temporarily famous in his neighborhood. It had sparked a conversation about kindness, about taking time to help others, and about the value of fixing things instead of replacing them. Local community groups were already organizing workshops where people could bring broken items to be repaired, inspired by his simple act of kindness. The following week brought changes that nobody could have predicted. The toy store owner, who everyone in the neighborhood called Uncle G, had started mentoring the boy after school. The old shop, tucked away in a quiet corner of the local market, became a second home to him. The store itself was like stepping into a magical workshop. Shelves lined with parts, tools, and toys in various states of repair created narrow pathways through the space. The scent of wood, metal, and electronics mixed with the mustiness of old books that Uncle G kept for reference. It was here that the boy's simple hobby began transforming into something much more meaningful. One particularly busy afternoon, while the boy was learning how to repair the intricate gears of a vintage music box, an unexpected visitor arrived at the shop. A well-dressed woman from a major toy manufacturing company had seen the viral video and had been touched by the story. She watched quietly from the doorway as the boy worked, his fingers moving carefully among the delicate mechanisms. "You know," she said, finally making her presence known, "we have a special program for young inventors and repair experts." She explained how their company had been looking for ways to make toys more durable and reparable, instead of just releasing new models every year. The viral video had caught their attention because it aligned perfectly with their new initiative. The boy listened intently while continuing to work on the music box, his hands steady as he adjusted a tiny spring. Uncle G stood nearby, a proud smile playing on his weathered face. The company representative explained their proposal. They wanted to create a series of reparable toys, and they needed input from people who understood both the technical aspects and the emotional value of toys. But what happened next surprised everyone. Instead of jumping at the opportunity, the boy looked thoughtfully at the half-repaired music box in his hands. "That sounds amazing," he said carefully, "but I think we need to think bigger." He went on to share how his experience over the past week had shown him something important. He told them about all the people who had come to Uncle G's shop since the video went viral, parents with their children's beloved toys, elderly people with treasured mechanical items from their youth, and even teenagers with broken electronics. Each item came with a story, a memory that was worth preserving. "What if," he suggested, his eyes bright with enthusiasm, "instead of just making new reparable toys, we also taught other kids how to fix things?" He explained his vision of creating repair workshops in schools and community centers, where children could learn basic repair skills and understand the value of fixing rather than discarding. The company representative listened with growing interest as Uncle G chimed in, sharing his own experiences of how teaching children to repair things built confidence, patience, and problem-solving skills. The boy's simple act of kindness was evolving into something that could impact countless lives. As they discussed possibilities, the little girl whose toy he had fixed appeared at the shop's door with her brother and parents. They had become regular visitors, but today they brought something special, a home-cooked meal as a thank-you gesture. The timing couldn't have been more perfect, as it showed the company representative exactly what they were talking about, how fixing things could build connections between people. The girl's mother shared how her daughter had started showing interest in how things worked, taking apart her other toys, carefully, she assured, and trying to understand their mechanisms. The viral video hadn't just fixed a toy, it had sparked curiosity and creativity in others. That evening, as the group sat together sharing the home-cooked meal on a cleared workbench, ideas flowed freely. The company representative took notes as the boy and Uncle G described their experiences. The little girl and her brother contributed their own suggestions about what would make toys more fun to fix. The simple repair shop had transformed into a think tank of sorts, where innovation met compassion. The boy realized that his grandfather's lessons about fixing things had been about more than just repairs, they were about building bridges between people, between generations, and between different ways of thinking. As the sun set outside the shop window, casting long shadows among the shelves of toys waiting to be fixed, the boy felt a deep sense of purpose. His viral moment of kindness wasn't just a fleeting internet sensation, it was becoming the catalyst for real change in his community and potentially beyond. The company representative left that evening with more than just notes, she left with a vision of how a single act of kindness could transform an entire industry. But more importantly, she left with an understanding of why this story had touched so many hearts. In a world of disposable everything, the simple act of fixing something showed that some things, and some moments, were worth preserving. News of the toy company's interest in Uncle G's shop spread quickly through the neighborhood. What had started as a simple viral video was now blossoming into something much bigger. The local community center reached out, offering their space for weekend repair workshops, and soon the boy found himself not just fixing toys, but teaching others how to do it too. The first workshop was scheduled for a Saturday morning. The boy had spent the entire week preparing with Uncle G, organizing tools and spare parts, and creating simple instruction sheets. He was nervous about teaching others, but Uncle G reminded him that he had been naturally teaching since the day he fixed the little girl's mechanical puppy. When Saturday arrived, the community center's main hall was transformed into a repair workshop. Tables were set up in clusters, each equipped with basic tool sets. The boy had worried that few people would show up, but by 9 o'clock, the hall was buzzing with energy. Children of all ages arrived with their parents, carrying broken toys and excited smiles. Among the attendees was an elderly man who brought an old clockwork train set that hadn't run in decades. "This was my father's," he explained, his voice thick with emotion. "I've kept it all these years, hoping someone could help me get it working again." The boy paired him with the little girl whose toy he had fixed. She had become quite skilled at understanding mechanical toys over the past weeks. As the workshop progressed, something magical happened. The room filled with the sounds of tinkering, laughter, and excited exclamations as broken toys slowly came back to life. Parents worked alongside their children, learning together. The elderly man with the train set beamed with joy as the little girl helped him oil the gears and replace worn-out parts. The toy company representative returned that day, this time with a film crew. They captured the scene of community members helping each other, sharing tools and knowledge, and celebrating each successful repair. But what caught their attention most was how the boy moved from table to table, offering encouragement and guidance with a patience that seemed beyond his years. During lunch break, a surprise visitor arrived, the boy's grandfather. He had seen the viral video and had been following the story's development from his retirement home in another city. Watching his grandson teach others the skills he had once taught him brought tears to his eyes. "You've taken what I taught you," he said proudly, "and made it into something far more beautiful than I could have imagined." The afternoon session brought new challenges and triumphs. A shy young boy successfully repaired his sister's favorite doll, while a teenager fixed the remote control car she had given up on months ago. Each repair seemed to mend more than just the toy. It rebuilt confidence, strengthened relationships, and created new connections between neighbors who had barely spoken before. Uncle G observed it all with quiet satisfaction. He shared stories with the boy's grandfather about how the shop had come alive in new ways since the viral video. Young people who used to walk past without a glance now stopped to peer through the windows, curious about what was being fixed inside. The toy company's film crew captured a particularly touching moment when the elderly man's train set finally chugged to life, puffing around a makeshift track. The entire room erupted in applause, and the man hugged the little girl who had helped him, tears streaming down his face. "My father would be so happy," he whispered. As the day drew to a close, the boy's grandfather pulled him aside. "You know," he said, "when I taught you how to fix things, I thought I was just passing on practical skills. But you've shown me it was really about fixing connections between people." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small, worn leather case. "These were my first repair tools. I think it's time they had a new owner." The community center director was already talking about making the workshop a regular event. The toy company representative was discussing plans to provide supplies and support for future sessions. But what meant the most to the boy was seeing how people lingered after the workshop, sharing stories, and making plans to help each other with future projects. That evening, as he helped clean up the community center, the boy found a stack of thank you notes left by participants. One caught his eye, a crayon drawing from a young child showing stick figures working together around a table, with the words, "Today we fixed more than toys," written in wobbly letters. The viral video that had started it all was no longer just about one act of kindness. It had become a catalyst for something much more significant, a movement that brought people together, bridged generational gaps, and showed that sometimes the most valuable repairs weren't just about fixing broken things, but about mending the spaces between people. The success of the first workshop sparked a chain reaction throughout the city. Schools began reaching out, asking if the boy and Uncle G could bring their repair program to their students. The toy company, seeing the incredible response, fast-tracked their plans to support the initiative. But with all this attention, the boy never forgot where it all started, with a simple desire to help fix a broken toy. One morning, as he was helping Uncle G sort through donations for their next workshop, they received an unexpected letter. It was from a children's hospital across town. The hospital administrator had seen the viral video and the news coverage of their workshop. She explained how many of their young patients had broken toys that needed repair, but more importantly, she described how the children needed something to look forward to during their long hospital stays. The boy sat quietly for a long time after reading the letter, turning an idea over in his mind. Uncle G watched him with knowing eyes, already guessing what his young apprentice was thinking. Finally, the boy looked up and said, "What if we could bring the workshop to them?" The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The toy company immediately offered to help, providing portable tool kits and materials. The local community rallied together, with people donating gently used toys that could be repaired by the children. The boy's school principal even arranged for him to receive credit for the time he spent at the hospital, considering it as practical learning experience. The first hospital visit was both challenging and rewarding. The boy and Uncle G set up a mobile workshop in the children's ward playroom. They brought along the little girl who had started it all. She had become quite skilled at repairs and had a special way of connecting with other children. Her mechanical puppy, now working perfectly, became the mascot of their hospital program. One particular patient, a young boy who hadn't smiled in weeks according to the nurses, showed special interest in learning how to repair a remote-controlled car. Despite being confined to his bed, his eyes lit up as the boy taught him how to troubleshoot the problems and make repairs. By the end of the session, not only was the car zooming around the room, but the patient was grinning from ear to ear. The hospital staff noticed an immediate change in the children's spirits. The weekly repair sessions gave them something to look forward to, a sense of accomplishment, and most importantly, a way to focus on creating rather than their illness. Parents reported that their children were more engaged and positive, often spending time between sessions thinking about what they would fix next. Word of the hospital program spread quickly. Other hospitals in nearby cities began requesting similar programs. The boy's grandfather, who had been following his grandson's journey with pride, started coordinating with retirement communities to create a network of experienced repair mentors who could help expand the program. The toy company's documentary crew captured a particularly moving moment when a young patient, who had been too weak to participate in previous sessions, finally felt strong enough to join. With careful guidance, she managed to fix a music box that had belonged to her mother. The sound of its melody playing for the first time brought tears to everyone's eyes. Back at Uncle G's shop, the workbench where it all started had become something of a community landmark. People would stop by just to share stories or drop off broken toys for the hospital program. The shop window now displayed photos of smiling children with their repaired toys, each picture telling a story of healing that went far beyond the physical repairs. One evening, as the boy was writing in the notebook his grandfather had given him, where he kept notes about repairs and the stories behind them, he received a video call. It was from a children's hospital in another country. They had heard about the program and wanted to know if he would help them set up something similar. The boy realized that what had started with fixing one toy was now crossing borders and changing lives around the world. The local news station did a follow-up story, focusing on how the hospital program was impacting the community. They interviewed one of the doctors, who explained how the repair workshops were doing more than just fixing toys. They were giving children a sense of control in an environment where they often felt helpless. The ability to fix something broken was empowering them in ways that traditional therapy couldn't match. As the boy walked home that evening, he passed the park bench where he had fixed the little girl's toy. Someone had placed a small plaque on it that read, "Where one act of kindness sparked a movement." He sat down, taking out his grandfather's old leather tool case, and reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. A group of children playing nearby recognized him and ran over, excited to show him their toys that they'd learned to maintain and repair themselves. Their parents followed, sharing stories about how the repair workshops had changed their families' perspectives on disposable culture and the value of fixing things. 6 months had passed since the viral video that changed everything. The boy sat in Uncle G's shop, surrounded by the familiar comfort of tools and half-repaired toys, reading letters from around the world. Each envelope contained stories of how their repair movement had touched lives in unexpected ways. One letter particularly caught his attention. It was from a teacher in a small rural school, describing how her students had started their own repair club after watching the documentary about their hospital program. The children had begun fixing not just toys, but also basic school equipment and supplies that the school couldn't afford to replace. As he read the letter aloud to Uncle G, a small group gathered in the shop, regulars who had become like family over the past months. The little girl whose toy had started it all was there too, now confidently teaching other children basic repair techniques at their weekend workshops. "You know what's amazing?" Uncle G said, adjusting his glasses. "It's not just about fixing things anymore. These children are learning to see possibilities where others see problems." He picked up a recently repaired vintage dollhouse, running his fingers over the carefully restored details. Each repair tells a story of hope. The toy company had kept their promise, launching a line of reparable toys designed with input from the boy and Uncle G. But they had gone a step further. Each toy came with basic repair tools and illustrated guides, encouraging children to understand and maintain their own toys. The packaging even featured the story of how it all began, with a photo of the park bench where the first repair took place. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. A famous tech entrepreneur visited the shop, having heard about their movement. He watched silently as the boy helped a young child fix a tablet's broken charging port, something they had recently added to their repair workshops as they expanded beyond just toys. "This is exactly what our world needs," the entrepreneur finally said. "We've created a throwaway culture, but you're teaching these kids something different." He shared his own story of growing up taking apart and reassembling computers, and how that curiosity had led to his success. The entrepreneur proposed creating an online platform where repair communities could connect, share knowledge, and support each other. He offered to provide resources and technical expertise, but insisted that the boy and Uncle G remain the heart of the project. "This started with genuine kindness," he said, "and that's what makes it special." The boy's grandfather, who now regularly visited to help with workshops, reminded everyone of an important point. "Remember," he said, holding up a battered old teddy bear he was restuffing, "we're not just fixing things. We're fixing memories, hope, and sometimes even broken spirits." Later that day, the hospital called with exciting news. Their repair program had been studied by child psychologists, who found significant improvements in patient recovery rates and emotional well-being among children who participated. The findings were going to be published in a medical journal, highlighting how simple acts of repairing could have profound healing effects. The little girl, who had been listening to all this while working on a music box, suddenly spoke up. "Can we write a book?" she asked. "A book that teaches other kids how to fix things?" Her brother, who had been photographing their repair sessions all along, added that they had plenty of pictures to include. The idea caught fire immediately. The toy company offered to publish it, and soon everyone was contributing ideas. It would be more than just a repair manual, it would be a collection of stories, showing how fixing broken things could help fix broken hearts and build stronger communities. As word spread about the book project, more stories poured in. A retirement home wrote about how their residents had started a repair cafe, sharing their lifetime of skills with young people. A youth center described how their repair workshops had helped troubled teens find purpose and direction. Each story reinforced what they had learned, that the act of repairing had the power to bridge generations and heal communities. That evening, after everyone had left, the boy and Uncle G sat among their beloved tools and projects. The shop looked different now, with walls covered in photos, letters, and children's drawings. A map showed all the places where their repair movement had spread, with new pins being added almost daily. "Did you ever think," Uncle G asked, "that fixing one toy would lead to all this?" The boy shook his head, remembering that afternoon in the park that seemed so long ago. On his workbench lay his grandfather's old leather tool case, now accompanied by letters, photos, and tokens of appreciation from around the world. Through the shop window, they could see the sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors. Parents were walking home with their children, many carrying toys that had been given new life in their workshop. The boy noticed how these children treated their repaired toys with special care, understanding the value of things that had been fixed with love and patience. 1 year had passed since that fateful day in the park. The repair movement had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams, but the most extraordinary changes were the ones that couldn't be measured, the countless smiles, restored memories, and renewed hope that came from fixing broken things. The book project had blossomed into something beautiful. Children from around the world had sent in their own repair stories and drawings. The little girl's idea had evolved into a series of books, each focusing on different aspects of repair and restoration. The first volume, titled "Fixing More Than Toys," was set to launch at a special event in the community center where their workshops began. On the morning of the book launch, the boy arrived early at Uncle G's shop to find a surprise waiting. The shop had been decorated with fairy lights and photographs documenting their journey. But what caught his eye was a peculiar package wrapped in brown paper, sitting on his workbench with a note from his grandfather. "Open this when the time feels right," the note read. The boy carefully placed the package in his grandfather's old leather tool case, which had become his constant companion over the past year. Today, it contained not just tools, but also the memories and stories of countless repairs. The community center was packed with familiar faces and new friends. Children proudly displayed toys they had repaired themselves, while parents shared stories of how the repair movement had changed their families. The hospital program had expanded to 20 different hospitals, and representatives from each one had come to celebrate. The tech entrepreneurs' online platform had connected repair communities across continents. Live video feeds showed groups gathering in community centers, schools, and hospitals around the world, all tuning in for the book launch. The boy noticed how many of these groups had recreated Uncle G's workshop setup, right down to the arrangement of tools and the welcoming atmosphere. As the event began, the little girl, whose mechanical puppy still worked perfectly, stood beside the boy at the podium. Together, they shared the story of how it all started. But this time, they noticed something different in the audience's reaction. People weren't just listening to a story about fixing toys, they were hearing a message about fixing the way we live in the world. The toy company's CEO took the stage to make an unexpected announcement. Inspired by the success of their reparable toy line, they were establishing a foundation dedicated to teaching repair skills to children worldwide. The foundation would provide tools, materials, and training to schools and community centers, ensuring that the movement would continue to grow. During the celebration, a group of children from the hospital program presented something special. They had repaired an antique carousel music box that had been sitting broken in the hospital's storage for decades. As its gentle melody filled the room, the boy remembered Uncle G's words about how every repair tells a story of hope. His grandfather, watching proudly from the front row, gestured for him to open the package he had received that morning. Inside, the boy found an old photograph album. The images showed his grandfather as a young man, fixing toys in a small workshop much like Uncle G's. The final page held a letter that brought tears to his eyes. "My dear grandson," it read, "when I taught you to fix things, I was passing down more than just skills. I was sharing a belief that in our hands lies the power to make the world a little better, one repair at a time. You've taken this simple lesson and turned it into a movement that's fixing not just toys, but hearts and communities. Today, as I watch you launch this book, I want you to know that you've fixed something in me too, my faith in the future." The event turned into an impromptu repair workshop when children began bringing forward toys that needed fixing. The boy watched as experienced young fixers taught newcomers, passing on their knowledge just as his grandfather had done for him. The scene repeated itself in community centers around the world, all connected through the live video feeds. A surprise visitor arrived, the journalist who had recorded the original viral video. She had been documenting the movement's growth over the past year and shared how the simple act of kindness she had captured had inspired similar movements in other areas of life. People were starting to ask not just, "Can this be fixed?" but, "How can we fix this together?" Late in the afternoon, as the celebration continued, the boy slipped away to the park bench where it all began. He sat down, opened his grandfather's tool case, and began fixing a toy that a shy child had handed him earlier. As he worked, he realized that the true magic wasn't in the repairs themselves, but in the way they brought people together. A small crowd gathered to watch him work, just as they had a year ago. But this time, instead of just watching, they were sharing their own repair stories, offering suggestions, and encouraging each other. The bench had become more than just a place where a toy was fixed. It was a symbol of how small acts of kindness could grow into something revolutionary. The setting sun cast long shadows across the park, just like it had on that first day. But now, instead of one boy with a toolbox, there was a global community of fixers, each carrying forward the simple message that broken things, and broken spirits, could be repaired with patience, skill, and kindness. As the repair movement's first anniversary celebrations wound down, the boy found himself back in Uncle G's shop late one evening. The place had transformed over the year, yet somehow remained exactly the same at its heart. Tools still lined the walls, broken toys still waited patiently for their turn to be fixed, and the warm glow of the workbench lamp still created that familiar comfort. A special package had arrived earlier that day, the first printed copy of their book. As he carefully turned its pages, each photograph and story brought back memories of the incredible journey that had started with one simple act of kindness. The book's dedication page read, "To every broken thing that helped us learn how to fix what really matters." The little girl and her brother arrived at the shop, carrying their mechanical puppy, the very toy that had started it all. "It needs a checkup," she announced with a knowing smile. The toy still worked perfectly, but this had become their tradition, monthly maintenance sessions where they would clean and oil the gears together, ensuring the toy would last for generations to come. As they worked, Uncle G received an unexpected video call. It was from a small village in a distant country where they had helped establish a repair workshop. The children there wanted to show them something special. They had restored an entire playground using the skills they'd learned from the online repair community. The rusty swings now swayed smoothly, the broken seesaw balanced perfectly, and the old merry-go-round spun with joy. "You see," Uncle G said after the call, "we thought we were just teaching them to fix toys, but they're fixing their whole world, piece by piece." He picked up an old clock he'd been repairing, its gentle ticking a reminder that every moment held the potential for positive change. The toy company's reparable toy line had become their best-selling product line, inspiring other manufacturers to follow suit. But more importantly, it had sparked a change in consumer behavior. Parents reported that their children were now asking questions about how things worked, taking better care of their possessions, and showing pride in repairing rather than replacing. The hospital program had evolved in unexpected ways. The children weren't just fixing toys anymore, they were inventing new ways to make the hospital experience better for other patients. One young patient had designed a special holder for 4 bags decorated with repair tools, turning something scary into something inspiring. Another had created a repair kit for newcomers, filled with encouraging notes and simple projects to help them feel less afraid. The boy's grandfather had moved closer to town to help with the growing movement. He spent his days sharing stories with young fixers, his weathered hands guiding theirs as they learned to repair not just toys, but family heirlooms and cherished memories. "Every broken thing," he would say, "is an opportunity to build something stronger." The online repair community had grown into a global network of problem solvers. When one group encountered a particularly challenging repair, others would offer suggestions and support. They shared not just repair techniques, but stories, dreams, and the belief that together they could fix anything. Late that evening, as the boy was closing up the shop, a young mother rushed in with her crying toddler. In the child's hands was a tablet with family photos stored on it, photos of a recently lost grandparent that they feared were gone forever. Without hesitation, the boy got to work. 2 hours later, the tablet was working again, and the precious memories were saved. As they left, the mother turned back and said something that made everything click into place. You know, everyone talks about how you fix toys and gadgets, but what you're really fixing is hope. You're showing us that broken doesn't mean gone forever. That night, the boy sat at his workbench, writing in his repair journal. Next to him lay his grandfather's old leather tool case, now accompanied by the first copy of their book, Letters from Around the World, and the original viral video playing silently on a small screen, a reminder of how far they'd come. He wrote about how fixing things had taught him about patience, persistence, and the power of community. How every repair was a small act of rebellion against a throwaway culture, and how each fixed toy was a step toward a more sustainable future. But most importantly, he wrote about how the real repairs weren't in the toys or gadgets, they were in the connections formed, the confidence built, and the hope restored. The next morning, as he walked to the shop, he passed children heading to school, many carrying toys he recognized from the workshop. They waved excitedly, some showing off their own small tool kits, proud to be part of the repair movement. The park bench where it all started had become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that the biggest changes often start with the smallest actions. As he unlocked the shop door, he found a small crowd already waiting, some with broken toys, others just wanting to learn, all part of this growing community of fixers and dreamers. The little girl was there too, ready to teach the day's first workshop, her mechanical puppy sitting proudly on the workbench. Uncle G smiled as they prepared for another day of repairs. You know, he said, adjusting his glasses, when you fixed that toy a year ago, you started something that can never be broken, you fixed people's belief in kindness. And so, the story of the kind boy and the broken toy continued to inspire others. But it was no longer just his story, it belonged to every person who had ever picked up a tool with the hope of fixing something broken, to every child who learned that they had the power to make things better, and to every community that discovered that the strongest repairs were the ones that brought people together. The movement they had started would continue to grow, fixing not just toys, but hearts, communities, and the way people saw the world. After all, in a world that often seemed broken, they had proven that with patience, kindness, and the right tools, anything could be fixed, one small repair at a time.